I figured out I had a passion for marketing and I had a passion for sports. So how could I combine the two? I think it becomes a lot easier to get brand deals and go on commercials and billboards and all that stuff when you're the MVP of the league and you're, breaking records and things like that. But that's top 0.1%.
Guys, what's going on? We get another episode of the One Network here. I got Jason Lay with me. He is a sports marketer and entrepreneur, a guy who runs marketing for a company called Equity Sports. I think it's going to be an interesting podcast because we haven't really had anybody on that Jason has been in your kind of industry or field of choice. And also, I think the way that you got into it is an interesting angle as well. So for our early stage kind of accelerator startup audience here, can you give a quick intro, Jason, to who you are and how you get involved in business?
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you having me on. So, quick intro because I have a tendency to ramble on.
Nice.
I am the head of marketing at Equity Sports. So we are a full service talent and representation agency, and we focus on NFL, NBA, MLB, and college athletes. So my role at our company is just leading all the marketing, which means bringing in endorsement deals, sponsorships, paid appearances, pretty much all business development opportunities for our athlete clients off the field.
Cool. And how did you get into that, man? What was your sort of, how did you know what I'm saying? What was the path to lead to that?
Yeah.
Did you have like an interest in sports? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I grew up in the DMV, which for those unfamiliar is the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. We are a hotbed for athletic talent and specifically football and basketball. So while I did not live out my hoop and league dreams, I grew up playing with and against a lot of high caliber talent and a lot of guys who ended up going on playing in the league and things like that. And so I was always around that growing up. So I think that's where the passion originally started. And as I was coming up and trying to figure out exactly my place in the world, in the business world, I figured out I had a passion for marketing and I had a passion for sports. So how could I combine the two? And, through experiences with very close friends and things like that, I witnessed that there was a hole in the sports industry where, I had a very close friend of mine, projected top 10 pick in the NBA draft, just an extremely marketable guy, decided to wait until he was ready to declare. And by the time he did, he ended up going from, projected top 10 pick to going undrafted a few years later. And what I had seen at that time, going through the whole process, we'd known each other since we were, young kids all the way up, still now today. His agent wasn't doing anything for him off the court, and he ended up playing overseas. Never played for an NBA team. Has had a great career, has awesome life right now. But that was kind of the genesis and the point where I saw, okay, this is where I can help not only him but guys like him, athletes like him, capitalize on their opportunities off the field, capitalize on the life-changing platform that they have, bring in money, opportunities, get them in rooms where they can shake hands where they normally wouldn't be able to. So from that moment, I kind of set on the journey of doing that. And it's not the easiest thing to break into the sports industry, especially working with athletes, because it seems like everyone kind of wants to get into that space and not a lot of people know what it entails. So I just kind of worked and hustled my way up to where I am now. And super fortunate to be in the position where I can help, athletes on a grand scale. We have guys that are at the top of their professions and guys who are just coming in. So it's a cool range of clients I get to work with.
So I'm interested, number one, in the business model. So how do you acquire, what does the acquisition look like to actually sign the athletes and get them as clients?
Yeah, so it varies a little bit based on how each agency is kind of set up. There's just from a broader view, there's agencies. Typically, I don't want to say any blanket statements, but typically in the agency and the representation space in sports and entertainment, you have kind of two sides of the spectrum where you have these giant conglomerates who have all the resources and money and all that. Um, but oftentimes there's a limited amount of people that are fighting for those, the time and attention. And then you have on the other side, you have these boutique agencies, which are, have all the time and energy in the world to put to people, but they oftentimes don't have as many resources they don't have the money, they don't have the connections or relationships to, put towards their clients. And so the way we've positioned ourselves at Equity is right in the middle, or we try to be a good hybrid of that, where we have the relationships and the resources and all of that, but we also have the time and attention and have it be a family feel and make the clients feel like we're um, or giving all of our attention to our clients when necessary. And I think we've done a really good job of that. But to answer your question, for us, we have our executive team where myself as the head of marketing, we have some other people in different departments, but we have agents who mostly focus on recruiting and the contract work for the players. And so at this moment in time, a lot of our client acquisition is coming from that recruiting from the agents. So they bring in the players, and then I'm kind of building out their marketing and everything, off the field. And I have amazing team that I work with. We have PR, operations, concierge, merch, digital, all that stuff. So we have we're lean when it comes to like number of people, but we're doing a great job for our clients.
Nice. So what's the day to day like as running their market, running the company's marketing? Like what you were
Yeah,
just talking before we started the podcast about some fires that maybe came up today, but what does a typical day like look like in this industry?
yeah. I mean, at the risk of sounding super cliche, like every day is different. Like earlier this week, I was one day I was in Columbia, Missouri. The next day I'm in Gainesville, Florida. The next day I'm back here in DC. It just it varies depending on the time of year. It varies depending on what the client needs are. But I think the easiest way to put it, there's two kind of main buckets that I focus on every day, among other crazy things. But on one hand, it's the business development aspect. So a lot of my job is very sales and business development focused. So when I'm sitting down with a client and figuring out their marketing strategy and kind of what they want to do, um, I have to implement that in a certain way. And that way is going out and, you know, talking to the brands, talking to these different companies that would want to partner with athletes to, on marketing campaigns and building the brand and things like that. So, um, getting in touch with them, there's a lot of cold outreach, there's a lot of cold email, cold calls, there's a lot of prospecting, research. That's a big part of what I do. And then the other half is the relationship management. So it's not only with the clients and their families, the players and their families, but also with the brands and the brand agencies. So, that twofold approach. One, I have to have a great relationship with the athletes that I'm servicing, because marketing is so personal, and it's so marketing a brand and building a brand for an athlete or anyone, any form of talent is so personal. Every athlete is different. Everyone has their own goals. Some people are really focused on just driving as much revenue as they can off the field. Some people are more focused on philanthropy and giving back to their communities. Some people are focused on just meeting people at different executives and getting to further their brand that way and kind of position themselves for post retirement, post playing retirement. But it kind of falls on me to understand everyone's goals and ambitions and what they want to accomplish, and then coming up with a strategy and a plan to bring that to life. And then as I'm doing that, I need to obviously have a good relationship with the brands and the agencies that represent some of these brands. So, like if a player, during the summertime is big camp season for a lot of our players. A lot of them like to host youth football camps or community days or things like that. Um, And with that comes a lot of sponsorship opportunities and opportunities to help, fund these camps and fund these days for these young kids in the community. So, having good relationships with food companies, both locally and nationally, drink companies, different sponsors that would sponsor different companies that would sponsor a youth football camp or, youth community day. So, um, those are probably the two main focuses. It's a lot of business development, a lot of relationship management, business development and relationship management.
Nice. How different is it working with, like, I know you guys have Mahomes and like some other like big names. How different is it working with somebody who's like already like an established name and somebody who's like a more new athlete?
Yeah, like I said, we have guys kind of across the board. So on a spectrum, like you guys, or we have guys that are kind of all over that spectrum. And for me, what makes I think it easier on me is really focusing on, the individualized approach is sitting down with the guys. We oftentimes like to meet with guys and their families, weekly or biweekly or whenever it is, to really understand at that point in time what they want to do. So obviously, if you have guys who are at the top of the league, like we always say, like, keep the main thing the main thing. If you're an athlete, nothing's going to elevate your brand more than performing on the field or on the court or on the ice or whatever your sport is. Um, I think it becomes a lot easier to get brand deals and go on commercials and billboards and all that stuff when you're the MVP of the league and you're, you know, breaking records and things like that. But that's top 0.1%. 99% of people across all sports are, might not reach that. So understanding where they are at that point in time with not only where they're at, playing wise, on the team and within the culture of the team, it's where are you in life? Are you married? Do you have kids? Like, what do you, again, it all goes back to what you want to accomplish and what your goals are off the field. Because again, someone might just want to make as much money and drive as much revenue as they can through their marketing, and some people are like, I made my money, or I'm more focused on making a difference in the community. There's just I know it's cliche to say, but there's really no two people that have the same marketing strategy, even if they're the same position, even if they're the same age. Like, guys come from different walks of life. They have different passions. They have different ambitions. So really diving into, uh, what makes them unique and their story that they want to tell, and being able to, tell that story through brand partnerships in different aspects. So, um, yeah.
Nice. Like how today, obviously, there's a lot of mediums, social media. There's always like a different social media platform.
Yeah.
Back in the day, probably main platforms were like press, you know what I'm saying? TV
Mm-hmm.
advertising, stuff like that. How is kind of like marketing different in like 2024 in terms of like, like social media ads and all that type of things that brands do for your clients?
Yeah, I think even over the past like 5 to 10 years, social media has skyrocketed. Like with the story I was telling earlier, that when I got into this, um, even back then, like social media was not what it is today. Brands were not diving as heavily into social media. Being called an influencer back then was an insult, whereas today you have kids who like growing up saying, "I want to be a YouTube person or an influencer or whatever." Um, so I've seen that the growth in, there's not as much print anymore, there's not as much radio anymore, and as with all marketing, you kind of have to you need to know your audience. That's number one. You need to know who you're promoting to, because and what mediums they're found on. But I think today, I think there was a stat where it's like 94% of all brand deals have some sort of social media component tied to it, because I think that just today, social media is like the first place that people go to. For a lot of people, Instagram are their resumes. Instagram is, or TikTok or Facebook or whatever it is. So today, social media kind of drives the majority of the marketing and brand deals. So for us, it's like, okay, let's make sure we optimize that platform first. And then when kind of getting into the weeds, when I'm working with these brands and brand agencies, um, I've kind of had to learn along the way of like, okay, athlete, if marketing is like a giant wheel, right, or a giant pie chart, um, influencer and athlete marketing, it can vary by the brand, but that's just one spoke of a giant wheel of a marketing strategy. So in order for me to effectively do my job, I need to know all the other spokes of the wheel and how they're affecting each other, right? So over the years, I've kind of learned, and really actually come to like and appreciate, knowing, okay, what are you doing? How are you implementing Facebook ads? How are you implementing email marketing? How are you implementing these different things? And how can we use the content that we have built or created with these athletes? And how do we infuse them into your different advertising and marketing funnels and channels and things like that? So um, for me, I've really enjoyed kind of diving into the weeds with some of these brands. And at a previous role I had at a different company, I was being more of like a brand consultant, and I was really getting into the weeds of like, okay, this is what you're doing with your Facebook ads, this is what you're doing with your email marketing, like let's tweak this and let's implement, like let's infuse this here and let's infuse this there, and kind of change their whole strategy. So um, it changes so much, as I'm sure you know. You kind of have to just adapt and roll with the punches.
Oh yeah, for sure. What kind of challenges come up? Like, do you ever have like a situation where a client like leaves and like churns to a competitor? Do you know what I'm saying? Or how do you even like look at that competitive landscape?
Yeah. So again, like for me, I'm kind of balancing two sides, right? Like we have the athletes who are our main clients, right? Because we're representing the athletes. And then on the other side, it's keeping the brands that we work with happy as well. Once we sign a deal for the athlete. So um, the sports representation, or at least the athlete representation world industry has, uh, there's, I wouldn't say frequent turnover, but it's not uncommon where athletes will switch agencies. But I think what a lot of agencies do, and I can only really speak for us, but what we do is try to uh, serve every part of their journey, like anything they need serviced, we're there for, all while building a relationship, and all while becoming very close with the athlete, and building that trust of knowing anything you need, like we're gonna help you and we're gonna get it done. And even if we don't know how to do it right away, or even if it doesn't happen directly in house, like we're gonna plug you with the right people who can get it done. Um, so that's kind of what I mean when it goes into like the relationship management with these guys. It's building that trust, and building the uh, and figuring that out. So we're lucky that we haven't had too many too many people leave us, because I feel like we do a really good job of servicing our clients. But it throughout throughout my career, it's going to happen. It's just do everything we possibly can
To yeah.
to avoid that, mitigate
Jason,
that.
so we have a lot of guys on who are like running marketing teams or in the community running agencies. How you mentioned before you had having a pretty lean team or really like you
Yeah,
doing a lot of the marketing. Like how
yeah.
is that? Do you outsource or delegate anything to other team members or contractors, or how does the team setup kind of look like on the marketing end?
Yeah, so we do everything in house. Um, try not to outsource unless we absolutely need to. But from my perspective, like when it, I have like a support staff, like a small support staff of, guys who can help me, do some of the research and some of the prospecting, and bringing the leads, and doing more of the I don't want to say time consuming work, because everything is time consuming, but uh, some of the more administrative tasks that help us kind of accomplish these things. But um, like we were kind of saying before camera, I'm essentially building out a business within a business, because like the marketing department is almost like it's essentially an in-house marketing agency, um, that we just have under the equity umbrella, or like kind of as part of the business. Because what a lot of, like you talked about outsourcing, what some athletes choose to do, and we don't have all of our athletes, I'm proud to say, we do everything for. um, but some athletes will sign with an agent at one agency, and then they'll have a separate marketing agency that does all their marketing. um, whereas we do everything in house. Like all of our clients are, we have them for on field and for off the field. So um, I'm essentially running it, and I'm essentially running a marketing agency within the parameters of our business. If that makes sense. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think especially since July 1st, 2021, which is when the law was passed that college athletes can leverage their name, image, and likeness. You're starting to see a lot of people come out and try to represent them, and that's a whole separate subject for a separate day. But um, the business model typically in the representation space, and this goes for sports, this goes for entertainment, this goes for kind of, you know it's on a commission basis. So if an agent negotiates, yeah, and when it comes to on field, like all of this is part of like the collective bargaining agreement. So it's different in the NBA versus the NFL versus the NHL versus like the major leagues. But there's a certain percentage that is negotiated. There's a range that like the collective bargaining agreement, and if, for those who don't know what a collective bargaining agreement is, it's essentially an agreement between the league and the union and the players union for each league, where they kind of set the rules and regulations of kind of how the business works, and those are negotiated kind of every however many years. But there's a range for each league where if an agent is negotiates a contract, they get a certain commission of that. And same thing with marketing. Like industry standard is on the marketing side, and this goes for like influencers and creators too, is anywhere from like 10 to 20%. So 10 to 20% commission. So that's a business model. So obviously, when you think about scaling and how do I scale my business, how do I scale my agency, it's the number one thing you can do is bring in more marketing deals, bring in more money, because the more deals you bring in, obviously the more commission you make. So that's also kind of where the sales aspect comes in, where it's like you eat what you kill. Um, and then it's just, the two ways to do it is bringing more deals and then signing more clients or signing clients who are more marketable, or signing clients who are, have potential for a bigger contract. Like yesterday, Trevor Lawrence signed, he became the highest paid player in NFL history. So he's not with us. He's with a separate agency, but um, like whatever their deal was, like the agency would get a commission of that deal. So
Somebody like that, like, do they have like people on their team who are like setting up like billing from the clients and like the contracts, or do you guys like who's doing the contracts and the billing for like a brand deal or something like
yeah,
that?
so a lot of guys have,
Is it something you guys
yeah,
help with, or
like I do a lot of invoicing on my end. So again, this is preference by different agencies, different players. Like the way my personal preference is, like, if we're working with a brand and they pay the player, send it directly to the player. Like I don't want it. I don't want us to touch it, because I don't want those problems. If anything were ever to come up, it's like we never touched the money before; it just went straight to you. But like I will like invoice the brand on behalf. Like we will invoice of them, and it goes directly to their people. And most players have financial advisors that kind of handle their taxes and all that, and all the finance stuff, which that is not my specialty. I'm not going to pretend to know how taxes and all that work. I have my own finance guy who does this stuff for me too. But um, yeah, when it comes to like all that stuff, a lot of players have their own financial people who deal with it.
if like a brand reaches out to you, like do you have like standard pricing that you quote them, or are you like changing it based on that brand and like the preferences of like the
So
individual?
it so it varies a bit on a couple different factors. So obviously you have kind of like a market ballpark or like a market rate, but what I think differs from athletes versus like influencers or content creators is athletes have a separate market that is dependent on their play. It's dependent on their geographical location. Like if a player is playing in New York or LA or Miami or Chicago, they might have a bigger national appeal than someone who's playing in Wisconsin or one of these other small, or Utah, or one of these other, quote unquote smaller markets. So, if also if a player wins MVP, or if a player has a breakout game and they go viral for their play, like that might affect the change, that might affect the pricing of certain things. So I think when it comes to athletes, it's a little different than influencers or content creators in that regard. But again, this is my personal preference. We have kind of a range, like a market range of where each guy might be and what they can charge and what they've received in the past for brand deals. And it depends, an Instagram in feed is a different rate than a story versus a commercial versus an appearance. So we have all these things kind of that we have data to back up. But if if a brand comes to us, or if we're working with a brand and they're like, hey, we only have X amount of budget, and it might be a little lower than their commercial value, but the player is really like, I really want to work with them, like we can be flexible. You know what I mean? So I think I've seen and heard a lot of instances where people kind of draw a line in the sand, and there's a time and place for that. But I think, for my personal preference, I like to be flexible because I like to be a good partner, and I think our athletes, um, at the end of the day, we all work together on this. So if they're comfortable with it, or if they're not comfortable with something, that's like, we're only doing what's best for the athlete and what they're most comfortable with. And again, what pushes the goals and the strategy and the vision that we work together on beforehand, we're pushing that. So if it doesn't align with that, then we're not going to do it.
Got it. Interesting. So how do you guys obviously have been in the industry for a long time? I think since what is it? I don't know how many years you've been in business, but a while. What do you think of like newcomers to the industry, like Gary V?
Sorry, could you say that again?
What do you think of like Gary V?
Just in general,
marketing. Yeah, like what's the perception of somebody like that, like coming in and doing an
you're talking about like, oh, gotcha. I mean, Gary's a legend. Gary's a legend, right? I mean, he's kind of doing his thing, and he's kind of revolutionized the whole, just like digital space, and he seems to be kind of on par with a lot of his predictions and things like that. Kind of what we were saying earlier, there's so many opportunities for people to come in and work. And I think at the end of the day, what we're here for as talent representatives, whether I'm an agent, whether I'm a marketing representative, or whatever I am, like at the end of the day, the goal is to do what's best by the client. So if someone's coming in and it adds more competition, like the reason I got into this was to help athletes and to help these people, outside of their sports. So to me, as long as someone's coming in with good intentions and someone's coming in to actually help and actually push the industry and push these careers forward, I'm a fan of it, because there's more athletes out there than one agency or one person is ever going to be able to effectively represent. So yeah, my hope is if anyone's coming in, just make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, and make sure you're moving with good intentions, because that's what this industry is. We're representing other people. We're representing other humans, and we have to do best by them at all times.
like obviously you have like kind of Hollywood agencies like William Morris and things like that. Like, is that like competitive? Like, could an athlete be represented by them as well, or is that, you know what I'm saying? Like, is that a separate kind of space, or because they're kind of like media personalities, obviously, as well.
Yeah. So in the case of a WME, like they have representation divisions as well. So players can sign to representation agencies. Same thing, just a little different. Not every agency is the same, but yeah, some, like, we only represent at this point in time right now. At the time of this recording, we only represent athletes, but other agencies represent influencers. Other agencies represent celebrities and movie stars and and athletes. So it just depends on your niche and your industry, really.
Cool. Jason, obviously, you've done a podcast, you've done your own companies. What any final kind of takeaways for an entrepreneur that might want to get started with a company like adjacent to the sports kind of industry or sports world?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is, again, move with good intentions. I think, especially if you're trying to work specifically with athletes, um, a lot of people kind of glamorize and idolize these people. Like, at the end of the day, they are human beings. They are normal people. So, um, if you come in here with the intention of I'm doing, I want to help them and I want to do what's best for them, I think you're safe. I think people can see through that and see, that you're genuine, you're authentic. I think that's nothing revolutionary, but I think it's just how you should move in life, is always being authentic, always being yourself. Um, always just, I always say, just if you work hard and be a good person, like, naturally the universe is gonna align itself. So I think those are the two biggest things, man. Just like, be authentic, be yourself, and just move with purpose and move with good intentions. I think that'll
Cool.
take you a long way. Yeah.
Jason, thanks so much for coming on, man. Where can people follow you? Do you post about marketing?
Yeah, I'd say probably the two biggest things I'm on right now, two to three, are Instagram, which is at Jason Ley with two N's, so JASONNLEY. Same thing with Twitter, X, JASONNLEY. And then LinkedIn, just Jason Ley. Those are probably the Instagram and LinkedIn are probably the two biggest ones. I'm should start building on my Twitter, but haven't used that in a while. But
Nice.
say those are the platform, the platforms to find me on.
Sounds good. Yeah, we will link it in the show notes. Thanks so much for coming on. It's the One Network.
Storm.